Hey there folks, and welcome to this video. This one here's the general notice where I'm firing off the week by talking about what's going on across my channels and things that are on my mind from the world of motorsport. Let's get into it, starting off with a channel update. And funnily enough, with the exception of next Monday, because I want to talk about the Supercars finale and the Qatar Grand Prix, I think every Monday to the end of the year, so the last four, will all be Monday general notices, which is interesting because I haven't had that for a while. It would be nice to have some kind of a routine, but I'm also going to be changing up a couple of bits and pieces. I've got some predictions reviews coming in, and I've got some prediction makings that I have to do as well as trying to watch about half the IndyCar season and possibly try and talk about those. So you might see a bunch of random IndyCar reviews peppered in over the next few days, depending on how quickly I'm able to sit down and watch all of them. Anyway, on the channel this week, you should expect a preview for the Supercars finale in Adelaide, then a preview for the Qatar Grand Prix, a review for Super Formula Suzuka, rounds 11, 10 and 12, because round 10 happened between rounds 11 and 12. It's the second Fuji race that couldn't happen. They rescheduled it to be at Suzuka. I'm interested in seeing how that one plays out. I'm going to sit down and watch those afterwards. I'm recording this just after having recorded my review for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Then on Friday, my Formula E predictions, because Sao Paulo is next weekend. And then on Saturday, a review for the Rally Saudi Arabia, because it runs on a Saturday rather than to a Sunday. We have a Super Saturday rather than a Super Sunday. Very confusing, but it's because of how weekends tend to be structured when you talk about things like the calendar in Saudi Arabia. And then Sunday, hopefully Supercars finale, and then on Monday, the Qatar Grand Prix review. Might switch it around depending on when I'm able to sit down and watch Supercars. If my Super View's working, I'll review it on the Sunday. If not, I'll review it on the Monday. And I might change it up as well, depending on whether or not it's looking like Lando Norris will win the title on the Sunday. Either way, over on CSRE, I'm hoping to get a review out for the launch edition of Project Motor Racing. The preview build has looked interesting, so I'm hoping to offer some insight on that kind of stuff. And maybe you'll have the Rennsport review out by now. If not, that might also happen, because I've had thoughts on it. I've got lots of recordings of it, and I want to try and clear up my storage space. Either way, let's talk about what's going on in the real world of motorsport. And we'll start off with this F1 news that apparently the team principal at Aston Martin is going to change. Andy Cowell is supposedly going to be moving over to the engine side of it, which makes sense because he was Mercedes High Performance powertrains over at Brixworth. Supposedly Christian Horner could replace him. According to the race, and it's John Noble who's covering it, so he's usually quite well connected. Horner and the likes of Andreas Seidel and Mattia Binotto are all being considered. Binotto is the COO at Audi. Seidel was McLaren, then went to Sauber, and then was ousted during the Audi takeover. And then Horner's Horner. We know a lot about Horner. Be interesting to see whether or not Horner and Newey would work together well again. Because supposedly that was part of the thing that led to Newey's departure and the downfall of Horner within Red Bull. So it'd be interesting to see if that would be something that would work or make sense. And also Horner wants a stake in the team. I know Newey has some kind of a stake in the Aston Martin team as well. So, if he was looking back in, I know lots of people touted Alpine for the longest time because it would be likely if Lav was going to offer him a stake in the team. Aston's one of those other ones that might. So, we could see it. I don't know if it'd be great, though. Like, I think Horner's success was limited to the scope of Red Bull and how long he'd been in there and the time that he came in. Because he came in with the team, he came in as the youngest team principal, he came in as the kind of insurgent and just kind of kept that reputation, personality. And that's what worked for him. That's what helped him climb up the pecking order in F1. It's what helped him make Red Bull successful with that first stint. And then with Helmut Marko helping out and a couple of generations of graduates, Vettel, then Verstappen, they were able to then have those successes 21 through 24, potentially 25, of course, but We'll wait to see on that one. I don't know. I think if I was Aston, I'd pick Seidel. I don't know how easy it is to poach Binotto, but if it was a straight fight between Horner and Seidel, I'd go with Seidel. Let me know your thoughts on that one, though. And let me know your thoughts on this as well, because Porsche exited WEC, and not long afterwards confirmed that they're going to have 4 factory cars when Gen 4 comes in next year. That's because they're creating a second team, a junior team. Interesting that it's going to be the first proper pucker junior team in Formula E. And it is Porsche doing that, at a time where they're reducing their costs by exiting the World Endurance Championship. Now, is part of that because of the fact that WEC and the FIA and the ACO did so many weird things with BOP that it created Ferrari dominance and revived Ferrari international assistance memes? Possibly. But also, a Formula E team is surprisingly cheap to run, surprisingly efficient to run. Something that will come up with the next article. I will look forward to seeing what this looks like, and who they would likely tout for it. I saw Callum Voisin has just been given a scholarship for the Porsche Sprint GB, so he could be someone that would be touted. I know Hanken Guven is somebody else who has been touted as potential for a Porsche Formula E seat in the future, because he did the rookie testing. Because we're now back at a point where junior doesn't, mean teenagers and young drivers. It can just mean people on the next step on their ladder. And Porsche, surprisingly, is quite a strong development program, because usually we think of, say, Formula 1 teams, or if you're thinking elsewhere, multifaceted, Toyota, and possibly Honda. But Porsche, they're another team, they're another manufacturer that invests a lot in motorsport, and they invest a lot in young talent as well. Yeah, be interested to see the impacts of that on Formula E, especially because it might mean that we then go back up to quite a large entry list, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we don't have any other team exits. The finance discussion prompts this last bit. The WRC and WRC27. I bang out about this a lot. And the reason why is because there's so many bits and pieces that are interesting and also, in parts, infuriating. Lancia have ruled out building a WRC27 car, especially because the Rally 2 machines are supposed to be able to be competing on a more even playing field against WRC27 cars. Now, part of that is because it's cheaper to develop a Rally 2. They've just developed a Rally 2. They released a Rally 4 this year. The Rally 2 comes out next year. They've got 30 orders for it already, so for Stellantis, that's like, yippee, that's great news. If they're able to run a full-time works team for a smidge of the budget that it costs to run a WRC27 program, go ahead and do it. I remember Colin Clark about 10 years ago now. No, it's not 10 years ago. It's about 7 or 8 years ago. It's around end of 2018, 2017. He spoke of Toyota and Hyundai each having what was at the time considered F1 level budgets, talking €100 million for the year. I remember when the BRC switched to Super 1600 for World Rally cars because they were like, well, the World Rally cars can cost £300,000-400,000, whereas the Super 1600 cars can cost 70 or 80,000. I should pull up the DVD. I actually am looking at the DVD right now, which talks about that on my shelf. I should load it up and try and get the figures for it. But nowadays, Rally 2 costs what WRC cost. And Rally 1, especially when it was the hybrid era, cost nearly €1 million. WRC27 is supposed to bring that back, but even then, they've had to push up the cost cap because it's more expensive than they thought it would be per unit. At some point, you just need to ask, is it not just worth doing the Group A from Group B switch? Get rid of WRC27, just have Rally 2. But Rally 2 as Rally 1, Rally 3 as Rally 2, Rally 4 as Rally 3. And then having them a lot more kind of common path, shared platform, and cross-competition. Because that's one of the things that's nice about those TC Lite regulations, is you can get Rally 5 and Rally 4 cars can do TC Lite, can do Rallycross, can do touring cars, can do rallying. I'm not somebody who's being a rally purist here and going, well, there should just be front-wheel drive cars in an official category in the WRC. That would be nice to see. But the best way forward is to have some kind of common platform. So maybe TCRs become front-wheel drive Rally 2 cars. Or rear-wheel drive, depending on what is on offer for the manufacturer. Then you have a good bop in there to make sure that there's some kind of balance. There'll be some tracks that naturally are more front-wheel drive, some that are naturally more rear-wheel drive. Look at the BTCC. But especially because you have so many teams, so many manufacturers that go cross-discipline, be a way to keep Hyundai on board. It'd be a way to get more marks into TCR, because right now you've got what? Hyundai and Lincoln Co. Technically kind of Honda. Technically Audi, though they sunsetted that for their F1 campaign. The main thing you need to do is get the costs down, then running costs down as well. Especially if so much of it is going into maintenance, development. Having a well-balanced, well-regulated category should get rid of that. I mean, look at kind of facilities that they have now. For European rallies, the bits in the service park are equivalent to an F1 paddock, right? In terms of hospitalities, in terms of those kinds of spaces around there. I'm not saying, you know, go back to like the idealistic vision of the 70s and 80s in rallying, right? Where you've got all of these people just going out of tents with tiny motorhomes and they go out to remote services. But maybe something more like the noughties. Granted, it was popped up a lot by tobacco money, alcohol money, and petrochemical money. But there are ways around it. Especially when the money to invest the capital is still there. Just inflation's meant that everything else is technically more expensive as well. But anyways, folks, let me know your thoughts and feelings, as always, in the comment section down below. If you want to check out the articles I'm referring to, you can do that in the description section. But until next time, bye for now.